Welcome, everybody. I am a supporter, advocate, and promoter of all things supply chain. Join me in my quest for a better understanding and insights into the world of supply chain. My guest today, Carolyn Montague, is the president of the Canadian Institute for the Procurement and Materiel Management, otherwise known as CIPMM, CIPMM. CIPMM is a not-for-profit organization that is a national voice and professional home for the procurement and material management communities, with a primary focus on the federal government of Canada. Carolyn has over 38 years of experience in the areas of material management, procurement, strategic planning, requirements definition, and alternative service delivery. Since graduating with a master's in public administration in 1982, Carolyn has held progressively more responsible positions, primarily in the federal government for the first 15 years, followed by 24 years as a partner in a management consulting firm called Performance Management Network. She has successfully managed large and complex multi-year projects from the requirement definition stage through to the options selection and implementation. She has worked with clients such as Transport Canada, Health Canada, Communications Security Agency of Canada, Heritage Canada, Public Service and Procurement Canada, Public Health Agency of Canada, Fisheries and Oceans Canada, Environment and Natural Resources Canada. Geez, I felt like I said Canada a lot there. She has developed over 30 different courses for both procurement specialists and non-specialists. In support of these courses, she has designed instructor manuals, participant binders, handbooks, speaker notes, case studies, and exercises, as well as guides in support of all the courses that she has developed. So with that said, I'd like to introduce Carolyn Montague.
Thank you. This is great. It makes me sound really old, though, which I am. But yes,
I would say experienced.
Yes. Okay. Well, my children sometimes call it matured.
Matured.
Anyways, so
Wow.
no, I'm very thrilled to be here. I'm a pretty passionate person about both CIPMM and procurement and material management. It's funny, I graduated in 1982 and I joined at that point what was called Supply and Services, which is now PSPC, as an intern officer. And I took the job, honestly, because the job I really, really wanted, they were having some tough getting it through the staffing system and it was going to take about another year. So I thought, well, I need to pay my rent. So I took this job, and it was an intern officer program, a 2-year program, thinking, oh, I'll just do it for a year. And then at the end of that first year, when they came and offered me the job I thought I loved and wanted, I didn't want it. I was fascinated by what I was doing. And about every couple of years, I had a couple of mentors who would kind of come along and go, I think you're getting comfortable there. You got to do something different. So I really have done an awful lot of different parts of procurement and a little bit of dabbling in material management as well. So it's been a lot of fun.
You know, that's a fascinating thing you mentioned about not just sort of stumbling upon the world of procurement. And I think much the same. My story was kind of like that too. You know, I graduated, didn't know what I was going to do. And nobody told me that procurement was actually a thing. Like going through high school or university, you know, it was either be a doctor, be an engineer, or be take business courses. But nobody tells you, oh, there's a whole world of procurement or supply chain. And it was through volunteering, right? Through APIX, which was the association I was volunteering for, that I kind of met professionals and I thought, oh, wow, there's a whole new world that I haven't explored yet. And I just fell into that and continued to learn and ended up where I am. So it's really fascinating how I think that it's not as well known as people think it is, right? Supply chain.
Yeah, I teach at Algonquin, or at least I did this last year for the supply chain diploma and the bachelor's program.
Yeah.
And I think those kids, if I can call them that, really have got to step up because they're getting really good training.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I had a public admin degree that gave me a lot of finance, accounting, project management, program evaluation sorts of skills. But again, I think this function of procurement, I always liken it to it's a puzzle. Every time it's a puzzle, and you got to figure out the puzzle.
Yeah.
And the solution to the puzzle isn't always the same. And
Hmm.
I guess what I've seen over the long number of years is how certain trends have gone, come back, how we've tried different ways of doing things. And it just makes you a bit of a junkie for all this, all the neat solutions that are out there.
I see. I see. So I guess that sort of got you somehow involved with CIPM. How did you get involved with them?
Yeah, well, CIPM itself is over 32 years old.
Okay.
So I was working in the department and I was very actively involved in those days in a number of the sort of new electronic commerce, business reengineering types of projects. And there was a couple of people, one at Treasury Board and a couple of people at the Department of Supply and Services, that really felt, because this was a time when we didn't delegate very much out to the department. So it was just beginning.
Yeah.
And so the feeling was that there needed to be an opportunity for different people to get together to talk. So they started this organization called the Material Management Institute.
Yeah.
And I got convinced, because I knew some of these people, to join and help. And then I actually had a stint way back at the very beginning as the vice president.
Hmm.
And this wonderful woman, her name was Barb Steves. I don't think she's involved well, she's not involved anymore, but I don't think she's in procurement or material management anymore either. But so we started pulling together. Then some other people, they took what was initially we kind of got to a half day workshop. And then we would have once a month, maybe sort of a coffee thing.
Yeah.
And we started trading information, stories, practices. So then I spent probably the next 5, 10 years not as actively involved. And then I started getting really involved, I would say probably 15, 20 years ago. Now,
Yeah.
CIPM has gone through some various changes. So interestingly, it started out as Material Management Institute, but probably about 15, 20 years ago, it renamed itself because the procurement side was joining.
Yeah.
And this is where I've spent most of my career on procurement issues. But it became very interesting because, again, it still stuck to the same idea that we were going to offer professional development, networking, and learning
Yeah.
opportunities. And our focus is still predominantly federal government.
Yeah.
But it is amazing that the breadth of different practices across the different departments.
Yeah.
And so I got involved because it gave me something that was slightly different than what I was currently doing.
Yeah.
CIPM itself is actually run by a series of volunteers. So
Okay.
the full board, we all have day jobs,
Wow.
and then we organize our events, our
Hmm.
national workshop, our virtual summits, things like that,
Hmm.
in off hours,
Oh,
or or we lunch hours, early mornings. So in
yeah.
fact, I have a 4 o'clock meeting today on the next virtual summit we're doing. So
Oh, wow.
I got involved because the people were really interesting, the
Hmm.
topics, because I wanted to hear those speakers.
Yeah.
And that's sort of how it's continued.
Oh,
I
wow.
was the vice president for, I think, about 2 terms.
Hmm.
I'm now been the president for, this is my third year.
Hmm.
And I was the chair of the national workshop, oh, I think about 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
I started the regional workshops. I chaired the learning events,
Wow.
breakfast series. So I've done pretty much everything.
Hmm.
And it's still a great group.
Yeah. Being a procurement officer myself, when I found out about CIPM, I thought this is fantastic. Not only do I get to meet and network with other like-minded individuals and professionals, I also can have the opportunity to expand my knowledge and my understanding of the whole supply chain and material management process. So, in your opinion, what do you think is why is CIPM valuable to professionals? What is it about CIPM that it provides to professionals that they don't currently have?
Well, I think it's quite valuable for public sector
Mm-hmm.
procurement and material management, because there is a big difference. I mean, many of the projects that we all work on, it's not our money, and we're not having to answer to a shareholder.
Yeah.
We're actually having to always answer to Canada, to Canadians.
Mm-hmm.
What we do is tied to some program or service or activity that's for Canadians.
Yeah.
That makes it different. It means that there's some sensitivities that we always have to be very conscious of.
Mm-hmm.
It means in some cases we need to be the good corporate citizen before anybody else.
Yeah.
A good example would be in our fleet management area.
Mm-hmm.
What you may not know is that we've always had standing offers for our fleet.
Yeah.
Been a long, long time.
Yeah.
What you may not remember is David Anderson was at one point the Minister of the Environment.
Yeah.
And as the minister, he was entitled to a vehicle,
Mm-hmm.
but he wanted an electric vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't have any electric vehicles in our standing offer at that point. And he said, no, this has to happen.
Yeah.
And what that did is, the Canadian government really took this on.
Yeah.
And is now taking on, as you know, with the greening government,
With the
really
green,
taking
yeah.
this on.
Yeah.
And what this means is that we were ahead of, in many cases, where industry was.
Okay.
And I think that has, so why is CIPM valuable? Because we offer learning, mentoring, networking opportunities
Mm-hmm.
that really do focus on public sector practices.
Yeah.
We don't try and we can learn from the private sector,
Yeah.
but we also know that there'll always be some differences. So I think it's valuable in that way. I think the other thing is that we are very member driven.
Mm-hmm.
So after every activity we do, we survey who was attended.
Mm-hmm.
We always are trying to get what's the next need of the community.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, when we decided to do our webinar series last July,
Yeah.
we do it every Wednesday. It's free. It's an hour long. Is because the community was saying, we're not getting any professional development and we've all gone home
Yeah.
and we feel pretty isolated.
Mm-hmm.
So it's trying to meet those specific needs.
Yeah.
And then I think the other reason why it's valuable is we do an awful lot of linking.
Okay.
So it may well be that somebody will say, gee, I have this as a problem,
Mm-hmm.
and then we can help link people. We just have kickstarted our next round, our fourth year of our mentorship program, as an example.
Okay.
And that's a really good opportunity because in many of the smaller departments, they don't actually have that same ability as the larger departments.
Yeah.
And so having somebody who's more senior that they can once a month talk to,
Mm-hmm.
get some ideas around various problems, I think is quite useful.
Actually, I was part of the mentorship program, and I had a great mentor, the director at Global Affairs Canada. I thought the mentorship program was very helpful, and I'm glad it's going to continue. And I think that's something very unique about CIPM as well. You mentioned mentorship and then events as well. Lots of events. Holy geez, how do you guys come up with these events?
Well, they various things. I mean, so we've had the national workshop for many, many years,
Yeah.
and we had for many years a breakfast series. And the breakfast series was very, very specific to almost more of a hands-on working conversation about new tools.
Yeah.
So Vincent Robitaille is a really good example. When he was first thinking of making some fundamental changes to some of the electronic procurement vehicles like TSPS, TBIPs, Pro Services,
Yeah.
he came and presented at the breakfast series so that the community could give him feedback.
Okay.
And then he incorporated that. So acting as kind of an in-house engagement spot was
Yeah.
very useful.
Mm-hmm.
So we then decided we used to have some fairly active regional chapters. And then the last couple of years, that's actually kind of I would say it's last 10, 15 years, it's just not been as strong. So
Okay.
we've decided that what we typically do is we invest in certain activities for the first couple years,
Okay.
even though they're not making any money. So
Hmm.
I was teaching at that point a lot out west and in the East Coast.
Yeah.
And I could see that there was very little professional development that was going on out there. So
Okay.
what we did is I went back to the board and said, I think we need to invest in 2 regional workshops a year.
Yeah.
So we did. And now that is now part of the fold, so to speak.
Oh, wow.
Then we actually started looking at our breakfast series, and really that by the hour we were having it and
Hmm.
the fact we were doing it physically meant that people in other regions, it was more difficult for them to participate. So that's why we then have moved again to the webinars.
Hmm.
And I think we then have gone and did the mentorship program. That was actually Carolyn Laundrie came back. I think it was in her interview for the board. We always
Yeah.
ask, what new idea do you think we're not doing? And she came and said, well, I think you need a mentorship program. And
Hmm.
so she was selected for the board, but then we sort of
Hmm.
said, okay, now you got to run this. So she developed that program. And then the last couple of things that we've been doing, we now have got uh, one person in each region. And so we now have a regional council.
Yeah.
And I've committed to each of them that CIPM will give them each a certain amount of money
Yeah.
that they can use to run their own events. But
Yeah.
equally, we will actually have the regional council, help guide us, making sure our programs
Yeah.
are relevant.
Oh,
And
that's
then we decided to do the virtual summit because we were canceling lots of in-person events.
right.
And now we're doing actually a career day and job fair
Holy jeez.
in June.
Yeah.
And we're going to be launching some new learning series,
Yeah.
master classes. So a lot of these kinds of things come from someone with an idea.
Yeah.
Guylaine Carrière, who's at Shared Services Canada,
Hmm.
in her board interview, she said, well, she thought we really needed to have an emerging practices symposium.
Hmm.
So we did. We did one on
Wow.
agile procurement, and
Yeah.
the next one will be on a material management topic. So fleet management. Somebody
Yeah.
came to us and said, we haven't had anything, the fleet community is a small, often forgotten
Yeah.
community. Could
Hmm.
we do something? So we said, sure, let's try it. So a
Hmm.
lot of times it's we try something. If we
Hmm.
feel that there's still a need for it, we
Hmm.
may subsidize the cost so that whatever we charge, or if we do it for free,
Hmm.
doesn't cover our costs, but we then support it for a couple of years, and then we see if we can make it revenue neutral.
I love that just your members are so motivated, right? I think that's fantastic to see that people are motivated to see things, to make things happen, introducing all these ideas for sure. I just wanted to mention that my mentor back then was Daniel Pilon.
Oh,
Uh,
yes, wonderful.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, he's great.
yeah,
Yes, and he's again involved in the mentorship program again.
yeah.
And he spoke, I think he spoke at our virtual summit,
Good, yeah.
and I think we're trying to get him again
Okay,
at
great.
Our June 3rd event is on managing complexities.
Okay.
And what's interesting about that is there's both in material management and procurement, I think we're seeing that there's some really what we call gnarly problems. And
Hmm.
they often come around but once in a career. And I think, the handling of PPE, personal protective
Protection
equipment, is a
equipment. Yeah.
really good example where, you know, the idea that we need to have multiple suppliers of things, that
Yeah.
we need to think about advanced purchase orders, this kind of thing.
Hmm.
There's a complexity to that
Hmm.
really we want to learn from.
Yeah. And that's a great point that you brought up because I wanted to pick your brain about the current trends that you see in procurement and material management, especially with the changing climate and the changing circumstances around us. What do you think the trends are heading?
Well, one I think we're seeing is for a long time, material management and procurement have been siloed separately from each other.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing a much more integrated approach. The other thing I think we're beginning to see is that we can learn from some of these techniques that different governance structures and different sort of approaches to contracting.
Yeah.
So we're seeing, maybe we have to look at the real property world and see how they do things.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we need to look at uh, the P3 approach, and how is that different?
Mm-hmm.
Shipbuilding strategy is a really good example. They've tried some really interesting things using websites
Yeah.
and third-party fairness monitors. And so again, some of these things I think we're seeing, they were done at the $100 million requirements. I think some of them are actually now beginning to be viewed as things we could try for maybe the $2 million mark project, in which
Mm-hmm.
case then a lot more people need to be understanding. I
Yeah.
think the other trend we're seeing is what I would call greening government, social procurement. I
Yeah.
think it's not, I was speaking with David Lepage yesterday, who is with Social Procurement Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And I had him speak at a regional workshop in Vancouver in 2018. And in 2019, he spoke at the national workshop.
Yeah.
And we were just saying, I'm going to have him do a webinar in, I think it's in April. No, sorry, it's in March. No, I really am having a seniors moment. It's February 24th.
Okay.
Anyways, one of the things we were talking about is a number of these things like social procurement is now being piloted in many different departments,
Mm-hmm.
where I think initially a couple years ago, all we saw were some municipal examples. I
Yeah.
think that's a trend we're going to be seeing because we're
Okay.
seeing in the mandate letters a lot more.
Okay. Wow. And that certainly has an impact in the world of procurement and material management. Um, is there any particular challenges or obstacles that you uh, in CIPM had to face and that you overcame?
Yeah, I mean, I think like any organization, you need to stay current. And I think that this is something that we are always trying to say, okay, what's new? What do we have to do? What have we done that we don't need to do anymore?
Yeah.
And so certainly we had to do some major sort of changes to how we deliver things, how
Mm-hmm.
we price things,
Mm-hmm.
how we market things.
Mm-hmm.
We also had to be very careful that as we became, I think, a bit more stable and maybe a bit more successful in getting our messaging out there,
Yeah.
I think we also had to say, well, what are we not? I think
Mm-hmm.
any organization as it grows needs to sort of keep an eye on what's in scope. So use the example of courses. We've several times wondered, should we ourselves develop some courses?
Yeah.
And we've come to believe that, in fact, no, what would be better to do is to highlight really good courses for our community
Okay.
and to bring those as opposed to us be the course content people.
Right.
I think we've looked at this idea of are we federal, provincial, municipal?
Mm-hmm.
And I think what we've come to realize is we are predominantly federal, but
Yeah.
that we've a lot to learn from our provincial and municipal.
Yeah.
And procurement modernization is a really good example of that.
Mm-hmm.
When we had our Calgary regional workshop, we had the City of Edmonton,
Yeah.
City of Calgary, and the province of Alberta speak on procurement modernization
Mm-hmm.
because they were 3 years ahead of us.
Holy jeez. Yeah.
And now it turns out the solution that PSPC has acquired and is implementing
Yeah.
is the solution that City of Edmonton actually had done. So we've learned a lot from them.
Yeah.
But again, that's the kind of thing that we need to be, someone's got to sort of get a sense of what are we, what
Mm-hmm.
are we not,
Mm-hmm.
who do we need to stay in touch with?
Mm-hmm. And I think CIPM does that well, and just goes to show the power of just having that connectedness, right? Being able to share ideas, being able to share best practices amongst one another. So that's something that is definitely CIPM does really great. So and hopefully continues to do. So before we wrap up, I wanted to talk about some of your events that are coming up. You have a lot of events, initiatives coming up. Can you tell
Yeah.
us about that?
Sure. So on June 3rd and 4th, we actually have a virtual summit under the theme of managing complexities. And
Yeah.
so that's going the June 3rd part of it is going to be focused on, highlighting some very creative solutions,
Mm-hmm.
creative, techniques. And then the day two, the June 4th, we're going to be focusing on what I would call career development complex issues,
Yeah.
as well as we're going to have a job fair with our colleagues at Treasury Board and probably Public Service Commission. And
Mm-hmm.
we're going to be inviting uh, students from the various academic institutions. It's a little easier now, actually, with the virtual.
Yeah.
So that's June 3rd and 4th. We're still doing our webinars until the end of May.
Okay.
And we do have three themes there. One theme is on the technical competencies that have been approved for procurement and are about to be approved for the material management community. So
Mm-hmm.
we work with Treasury Board on that, the community
Okay.
management office.
Okay.
We have a stream of webinars on leadership and mental health.
Yeah.
And we have a stream on what I call pure content. So in the pure content, that's where we're having the social procurement one. We've got the
Okay.
procurement ombudsman speaking. So that kind of thing.
Okay.
Um, we're building to our national workshop, and we'll be going digital this year, or virtual, I should say, for our national workshop, September 28th and 29th.
Okay.
And then what we're going to be doing is we, in the past 2 years, have done a national workshop, which was a third day focused on education.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're going to do is we're going to make the virtual national workshop 2 days.
Yeah.
And then the third day, we are actually instead going to do probably 6 different course offerings in what we call master classes.
Yeah.
So as somebody wants, buys their pass, so to speak, they will actually be able to pick from that selection of 6 or 7.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And we have our mentorship program, which has just started again.
Yeah.
So it's closed now in the sense of we've now matched. So we have 52 mentees and 10 mentors,
Mm-hmm.
and we have I think it's 22 different departments are actually covered in the mentorship program.
Holy jeez.
So then what we're thinking of is we're still working out our in-person fleet management and regional workshops are going to be moved to the spring of 2022.
Yeah.
So to meet that need, we'll be running a fleet management special webinar series,
Okay.
probably 4 discrete events, probably about 2 hours each.
Okay.
And then we will be doing and this one we haven't figured out the timing yet, but we instead of doing our emerging practices symposium, we're
Mm-hmm.
probably going to do some sort of learning series there.
Okay.
And that's one where we're really focusing on new techniques that are just coming. So some mind mapping is one of the topics that people have put on the agenda to do something. And then from there, we are going to be continuing to build our regional council. I think that
Okay.
that's where we're going. Now, if all goes well,
Yeah.
we're really hoping to have a lovely Christmas community event in person.
Oh, wow.
We did one at the Aviation Museum
Yeah.
2 Christmases ago,
Yeah.
and it was spectacular. So we actually had it booked for the National Gallery,
Okay.
and that we had to cancel because of
Okay.
COVID. And so we're just holding our breath to see how fast everybody gets vaccinated.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's that's coming down the pipe for sure. So hopefully we can that happens sooner than later.
I guess the biggest thing I would sort of say is in lots of people reach out to us and say, I would like I'd like a presentation on.
Mhm.
And we go back and I had Crystal Maloney of Public Safety
Yeah.
so said, I want something on digital signatures. And I went, Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
we can do that. So we
Mhm.
did a webinar, and we actually had two departments showcase their digital signatures and how they were using them in procurement, CBSA and PSPC.
Yeah.
And that's literally, that is how a lot of our programming occurs. Somebody reaches out to admin at CIPM
Mhm.
and says, I'm interested, and could you ever think of, and it gets directed to somebody,
Yeah.
me, a chair of, because I have leads. Uh, everybody who's on the board is a lead of something,
Mhm.
and it goes from there.
Wow. Definitely, that's a good way to drive value for your members, for sure. I can't thank you enough for coming in and sharing
Well,
all these
thank you,
exciting
and I
things.
hope you stay involved. I mean,
Yeah.
we're always looking for a volunteer, and as we organize these various events,
Mhm.
we've actually asked people, would you join the committee? So
Yeah.
the committee is not always the board of directors. The committee is
Okay.
often a couple people from the board and a couple people who've expressed an interest. So if you're interested, let us know. There's
Absolutely.
the only thing I'll say is, once you've said I'm interested, well, we will put you to work.
Hey, no, this is all, I'm loving it. So I'm going to continue. Hopefully, with my skills and background in video making and filmmaking, and the more I can blend the two, the world of procurement and the world of video and social content creation, I'm all happy for that.
Oh, this would be great. I mean, I can naturally see you helping us with our emerging trends and practices area.
Yeah.
The other thing is the National Workshop Committee is just getting reorganized, and they definitely need more people from a supply chain perspective.
Oh, wonderful. So maybe I'll be reaching out to them after.
Okay,
Sure, this wasn't a recruitment mission for you, Carolyn.
maybe.
I
And
would
again,
love to be.
congratulations
Thank you.
again on your award. That
Thank
was
you.
just great that you were able to get that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's been a fun journey, and I hope to continue it definitely.
Perfect.
Thank you, Carolyn, for taking the time. It has been very insightful and educational talk. Thank you to our listeners for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the Supply Chain Ambassador podcast to stay up to date on the latest insights. This is a new podcast, and I certainly hope listeners will find a comfortable home here with me as your host, as I continue to have more in-depth discussions with industry professionals about procurement and supply chain. And I'd like to end off with the quote of the day today, brought to us by Elon Musk, CEO of Tesla, who once said, "The supply chain stuff is really tricky." So as we can see, there's a whole lot of complexities out there, but hopefully we can come together, share some ideas, and build something great, right?
That is great. I love the quote too.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
I hope you have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.